Hola a todos. Hola
Yeah.
Jesús. Contento de verte. Y hoy habláramos sobre manejo de productos y inmigración en Estados Unidos.
Wow, it's a very good Spanish. Thank you so much for speaking in Spanish. I'm so impressed. I mean, it doesn't happen often to me.
I think we would talk in Spanish today. No?
I would love to. I would love to. I don't know, like the audience. Yeah, would work.
Yeah, I'm joking. So I'm just afraid that people here cannot speak Spanish and understand, but I'm learning. So hablo español poquito. Okay. So thank you for joining the call with me today. I'm really glad to see you again. It's been a while since I've seen you the last time. And so we met with Jesus 3 years ago, even more, when I was living in California. And I was looking for a job, and I got my job offer at Zella at the time. And Jesus helped me a lot with some hints how to get a PM job in the US. And over 3 years, yeah, I know that you changed your job. Like at that time you worked at PayPal. I remember you invited me to your office and showed me all that beautiful space at PayPal in California. So tell me a little bit about yourself, about your career path.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the audience to joining us, and thank you for speaking Spanish. As I mentioned before, that's something I don't see often. I think it's a very unique experience, and I really appreciate that. So, telling you a little bit about myself, and then I'm happy to talk here with you after all these years. I think that, in my view, the most important thing in the world is people and the connections that we make with each other to generate value. So to that point, about myself, I consider myself as a team builder person, as a risk taker, and as a mission-oriented person. And that three definitions basically has been guiding my path over all these years. Professionally, I've been working in product management for the last 13 years now. For the last 13 years, I had the amazing opportunity to first create my company. So I was a startup founder in the beginning of my career. I had a chance to create 2 startups, and I had the chance to fail and also had the chance to succeed. Like my second startup got acquired. And that's actually what brought me to product. After my startup got acquired, in the company who do the acquisition, I was offering to be a product manager in the position, passing from the CTO of my company with around 30 people to be a product manager in this company with around 100 people. And once I joined as a product manager, I also moved to the United States, and I spent the last 8 years of my life here in Bay Area, or specifically in San Francisco. And I had the chance at that moment to work in companies that are not my company, other startups, and later on work in big corporations like PayPal, Intuit. And now I come back again to the startup life and working as a director of product management in a company called BlockFi. So overall,
Congratulations, that was your top secret.
yes, yes. I didn't upload
Yeah.
my LinkedIn yet, but now I can reveal it. So
So
over that
yeah,
journey, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so the purpose of this call, and actually overall of my YouTube channel, is to help people in Russia or like Eastern Europe, and actually all around the world, immigrants, to become a product manager in the US. I know how tricky it is. I struggled a lot by myself when I moved to the US 5 years ago, and struggling with like a lot of like obstacles and difficulties to get into this industry and the culture. Tell me about your story. You moved from Mexico, right?
That's correct. And
Yeah.
I'm actually very happy that you made this channel because it's so needed. Is definitely one of those things that was taboo, I think, for a very long time. Like what are the journeys of immigrants coming to the States in no, I would say, famous paths as, for example, product managers or people who work in, for example, in marketing, right? Normally we hear stories about how people come to work as software engineers, but we don't hear stories about other careers. So to your point, yes, I come from Mexico. Like I, as I mentioned, I found my startups in Mexico. I had a chance to grow in Mexico in a city called Aguascalientes, which is in the middle of Mexico. And growing up there, I basically lived the growing of technology in a country like Mexico. I mean, I see the evolution of people actually don't have computers at home, and later started having computers at home. And suddenly some people have like smartphones and Blackberries and so on, right? So over that path, I had a chance to be one of the pioneers, and I create companies focused in technology. And one of my companies actually was focused specifically in mobile. We were actually creating financial products in the very early time of iOS and Android. So we are a group of like young guys like in their 20s, super focused on technology, and fortunate enough to actually to start creating financial products for United States, and later start to tropicalizing them for Mexico. And in that moment, we kind of like probably bring the attention for some investors in the States that seen us like a good opportunity. And this ended in an acquisition, like a higher acquisition, because we're like pioneers, we're young, and we're actually very motivated. And you can imagine like that also have his trade-off, right? Be young and very passionate. Also, you are very stubborn and probably not very knowledgeable. And that's what exactly happens to me. I was a founder with 23 years old, like when I started like, super young in this. And I was very ambitious and very passionate what I was doing in technology, but I lack a lot of other skills like communication, language, right? How actually be charismatic and to the point. So when I came to the States, was part of the acquisition process. When they acquired my company, the first move of the acquisition was solidify the teams. And this company who acquired me have offices in Europe, in Spain, in the United States, and in Mexico. So the first move was solidify the structure of my office with the office in Spain and the office in the United States. And after 1 year of consolidation, the corporate asked me to move to the States, specifically to Sunnyvale here in California. And when I moved here to the States, you can imagine that I passed from an environment that speak only Spanish, right?
Yeah.
To an environment that speak English and other languages and other cultures. So when I moved to California, we could say that formally, I actually started learning English, because whatever they told you, like, yes,
Yeah.
I go to college, I passed the test, and I had the certifications, but nobody prepares you to actually enter an environment, a multicultural environment, right? To speak another language. And that was exactly what happens to me. When I
So
come to the States,
what was the level of your English at the time you moved to the US?
well, I'll say in this way, I couldn't put together a sentence.
Oh my God. How did you survive?
In the very beginning, when the company moved me to Sunnyvale, I moved to the headquarters, and everybody who worked in the company speaks Spanish.
Uh,
We're a combination of people from Latin America and people from Spain. So my work environment, at least in the very beginning, there was 100% Spanish. I need to be in touch with people in Madrid, people here in the States and Mexico in different offices. So I spent around 8 to 9 hours speaking Spanish. And the rest of my communication, that was in English. But I always have somebody with me who actually will be more advanced in English. And this is a big mistake that I rely on, right? So in the very beginning, when I moved to the States, I was surrounded by the community, and I rely on in my friends who have better communication skills as me in English to translate for me. So the first 2 months in the States, I actually have a very hard time because everywhere I go, of course, like they have different accents. Being here in the Silicon Valley, you'll find like people are all around the world, and of course, bring all the beautiful accents. But as a newcomer, that was overwhelming for me because I came from I would say academic education where people speak English with Mexican accent. Coming from so later coming here and hear people speaking English with different accents, that was a little bit difficult for me to understand it, and I feel personally I feel embarrassed that I was not able to catch up with them. So that affects my confidence in the very beginning. Like, wow, like this person is trying to talk to me, and I don't know how to tell him that I cannot understand him.
I feel you. I feel you. Like not being able to communicate properly in the US is it's really painful. So how like when did you realize that you need to improve your English, and how did you improve it? Like you can speak very well. What helped you?
Thank you. I will say first you need to have a motivation, right? So I will describe it in three parts. You need to be very motivated, right? Second, you need to be shameless, right? And third, you need to be persistent, right? So how this kind of thing happens? Well, working in a very competitive environment here in Silicon Valley, one of the things I noticed, like when I arrived to the valley, is like people really appreciate networking in Silicon Valley. I mean, I'm not saying no in the rest of the world. Like coming from Mexico, where networking was a thing of only the weekends or specific gatherings, and coming to the Valley, that becomes my day-to-day activity. That was a huge difference. Why? Silicon Valley is this place where every single day after work, there will be a meetup, and there will be a lot of interesting people to go and talk and network, and probably some opportunities. And there are 1,000 topics. Like you could be actually in a network of people who's talking about Bitcoin, or people who's talking about specific technology, or a specific business, or a specific sport activity. But I think it's end-rotated in the Valley, actually to be this kind of like super high network or networking activity. So I realized that I need to improve my English in that way. After work, right? People will invite me to assist to a meetup. And I will go to this meetup to listen to speakers. And I will feel embarrassed in the moment of the networking event, because normally how this events works is you go to that place to have dinner, and there will be a super simple dinner. I'm talking about pizza and beer. That was super common in the Valley. And you will listen a 30 minutes presentation of somebody who is posing a topic. And after that, you have the rest of the night to just network with people. And everybody will be super friendly and super open about the topics that gathering matters. And I started noticing that I was missing opportunities. So to the part of the motivation, I go to those meetups, and there were amazing people who I could talk, and I couldn't do it because my communication skills don't allow it. And of course, when I go to talk with these people and they realize that I wasn't able to communicate, why they will spend the time with me, right?
Yeah.
So I can deliver value.
So yeah, you mentioned 3 points: motivation, being shameless, and persistent. So I would maybe focus on the second one. I think that's a big obstacle for, it was a big obstacle for me, and I see this for Russian people as well. They're super critique to their level of English, and A lot of people are afraid of speaking English if they don't have I don't know, like American accent, or they're ashamed of their Russian accent, or what else, like their grammar is not perfect. So how do you feel about it? So what do you think, like, should people focus on this sophisticated part of English, or just like absolutely unnecessary?
It's an excellent question. And I think that plays with your motivation. And I feel you. I was the kind of person in my first 6 months in the States that I was afraid of answer phone calls. And I will tell you why I was afraid to answer phone calls. Being here in the States, of course, you rely on your level of communication, but when you are in person, or at least in camera, you at least can read how people reactions are and feelings are based on how actually the face looking, right? The facial expressions. But when you're in a phone call, you cannot tell what people is doing or how they are acting, and you rely 100% on your listening. So I was terrified because in that moment, when I speak with somebody, I try to communicate myself. And of course, the people had difficulty to understand me. So they keep asking me, what do you say? What? Could you repeat that? What? And
Absolutely, yeah. I had the same issues.
And I feel terrified that somebody will enter in that cycle with me, right? Because it's frustrating for them and it's frustrating for me. So to your point, what happened is, first, of course, I was terrifying to go to all this meetup and know people. And of course, kind of damage. I feel like, I was damaging my own reputation going there, and suddenly looks like I was communicating like super bad and I cannot express myself. In my mind, I was thinking all the time, you know what? I sound smarter in Spanish, right? When I was speaking, I think I was communicating myself as at 2 or 3 years old, trying to connect the things, trying to put things together. So in one point, I realized like the same that in everything else in my career, if you wanted to achieve it, you need to do it. And to do it, you need to accept that it won't be perfect, right? And you need to embrace it, because feedback is a gift. Now, you need to filter what is constructive feedback and what is destructive feedback. But you need to have a high motivation to do that, right? So in that moment, I have this high motivation. Like, I was challenging myself, right? I saw myself in the mirror. And after this journey, I feel super bad. I was like in Silicon Valley after sell my company and feel myself successful and self-validated, and go to the Valley and couldn't communicate with anybody. So I see myself in the mirror every day. And I ask myself, you already passed for all this journey. You sell your company, you grow, you come to the Valley, and you will stop because you cannot speak English? Are you afraid that people don't understand you? Are you afraid that you can make it happen? You think they care about it? No. So every single morning, and this is a therapy, every single morning I motivate myself. And whenever we talk to somebody, I first accepted the situation. And people will say, what? And I will reply, I'm very sorry, like I couldn't communicate well with you, but please help me to improve. What I should say, what is the correct word? Could you actually, I don't mind if you correct me, please correct me. And I enter in this phase of accepting feedback and try to filter it. Of course, in this realm, you will find people who is super rude, and you have people who actually will acknowledge it and feel empathy, and they will help you. And unfortunately for me, I had a chance to find a lot of these people who feel empathy and they stop themselves and they're like, oh, you're actually making the effort. Okay, let me help you. And I just keep doing it. And you ask me, hey, Jesus, did you took classes after that? Do you was in intense English classes? No, I was not in intense English classes. I took classes, yes. Once I actually settled down here, I actually start assisting some classes with a professor. So I have like 2-3 classes per week. But the biggest thing that I did is basically embedded all these activities in my daily life. I go to the movie theater every week and just watch movies in English. I go to gatherings and just listen people to talk, right? And try to talk. And I surrounded myself of non-Spanish speakers, and I asked my Spanish speaker friends to help me. I actually have a very honest conversation with them one day, and I told them, like, you know, guys, I feel very embarrassed that I cannot communicate with others. So I will appreciate, like, if you guys are with me in a gathering or a dinner, you speak English to me. Force me to speak English. If I reply you in Spanish, just reply to me in English. Yeah. And that works. That was very intense. And that was 6 months of my life where I basically kind of like eat, dream, and kind of like wake up with English, but paid off.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, I definitely see that you have a great motivation to do that. And I like that you mentioned that you have to be fearless and you have to accept that you're not perfect. So I do a lot of grammar mistakes. My accent is not like perfect. I don't know. I don't mind. Yeah, really, I don't mind. So I did mind before, and I had some concerns about my English level, but like currently, I don't know. I can speak and people can understand me. That's what I really need. I don't need like to be an American and having a perfect English. So let's move from the guy of like 23 years old who moved to the US with poor English, without English at all, to your path to be a product manager at such a big company, well known, PayPal, and Intuit, and like being a director of products at the startup. So walk me through that, and what was the most important for you that helped you to get your at least first job at PayPal? That's a very interesting transition.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. So I think like first thing again is acknowledge. I first acknowledge that what actually I was in a different country, right? So we have three main barriers. One is communication. The second one is culture, right? And the third one is skills.
So communication, culture, skills.
Yeah. And job
is that
skills.
Three area for product management, right?
Well, in general, I think when you are an immigrant.
Oh, when you're an immigrant. Okay.
Yeah. And I will deep dive in these three things. Communication is also a skill, but when I say skills, I'm talking about specifically job skills. And I will summarize it very quickly. So different cultures have different ways to communicate, right? So what we believe is polite or impolite change depending on how you grow up and the perception of how you grow up, right? That's one thing. Second, culture is not something that you can learn automatically. It's something that basically you take from the people that you grow up to, like your parents and your family members, your best friends in high school. So that's actually what build culture. And this is what's so important when we define cultures in companies. Like we actually need to teach the culture, right? We need to teach how to actually follow. And the third one is the job skills. Also, that was actually very hard for me to realize, but also the job skills, even if you have the same title, change depending on the country. Because the people who define that job skills, guess what? They have different culture and they have different communication. So it's what I say, communication is number one, right? And culture is number two. And what that means? That you need to observe. First, you need to observe how people talk, how people try to communicate. And second, you need to observe what this means culture for them. What are the principles and values that they actually treasure? And with that, you can realize like what skills you will need, yes or no. Now, put in a little more concrete an example, right?
Yeah.
Coming from Mexico and living this entrepreneur journey, creating product for Latin America, right? My skills, specifically in product, they were very focused in execution, right? So, and I will talk about the skills of a product manager here in the States. So here in the States, we can see product management, and this is generalized in different big companies, in three main areas: product strategy, product design / product sense, right? And product execution, right? And how actually we see these three areas is product execution is how actually you go and manage the daily activities, how you do trade-off, how you define metrics, how you actually make the things happens. Doesn't mean like you actually just define it. No, it's how you actually be sure like everybody's working together. That's product execution, right? When we talk about product sense, is how actually you'll be sure that the thing that we are trying to achieve, right, have the correct component together and the correct people involved, not just actually make it happen, but the people involved, right? And when we talk about product strategy, we actually question the why. Why even this matters? Why even we're doing these things? Why we should actually invest even time in this, right? Like define it very high level. Now, coming back to the other points, the job skills, coming from Latin America, I was deep in product execution. And for me, product management in that moment was that. I was a guy who made things happen.
Yeah, so just want to specify, so we have three main components: product execution, product design, and product strategy. Product execution and how we get things done.
Yes.
Product design, you said that
who are the people who need to be involved?
Yeah, and the product strategy, answering why do we need that?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Correct. Yeah, and execution, including that still like hard skills, right? I was talking about hard skills like metrics, I don't know, prototyping, user interviews, backlog, managing backlog, creating tickets, task. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Got it.
Yes, and this was coming from Latin America. That was my life, because being an entrepreneur or be a product manager in Latin America, what that means in that moment. We know we need to create a mobile app to actually send money. Mm-hmm. We know that we need to do that. We don't question why or why right now, or it is actually the correct market, or how big is the market. We don't question anything of that. So my mind will go, oh, yes, of course. I see people need actually send money, and it's actually making money. And we have so many people who actually we can target. Let's make it happen. Yeah. And I was focusing like make it happen and bring everybody together and be sure like we can make it happen, and we have a consistent product, right, in mobile and web, and people use it. But that's product execution. And to come back to your question, like how actually I leave the transition, it was a hard transition because as I mentioned in the story, first, I didn't know how to communicate with these people. I cannot speak the language. So when I moved to the States, I started to observing this behavior in the meetups. So in the meetups, I see a shift in mentality. And in my journey learning English, I started to see a shift in how actually people communicate the things, right? So later on, when I socialize with more product managers, right, I started to noticing that for them, what I was doing that was perceived as an execution versus what I think that I was seeing myself like I was just making things happen, and that was my role as a product manager, right? The point when I realized that I was lacking of product sense and product strategy, that was when actually I kind of evaluate myself versus other product managers in the Valley. So I start to, again, assistant to more meetups, talking with more people, I start to asking higher questions like how this company go live, how is people actually creating road mapping. And I have the amazing opportunity that being here in the Valley, I have people from Google, from Facebook, and for other companies who they're actually willing to spend time with me and explain their point of view. And I need to absorb a lot and be humble. In the sense, be humble is you need to, in some point in your life, you are an eternal learner person, like you actually continue learning. You need to accept that you are not wrong and they are not wrong. It's just different perception, right? So don't take it like an offense. So people could be harsh because their culture is harsh, right? I can tell you, you are doing things wrong. but it's not that you are wrong. It's just you grow up with a different perception of what is the things that you are doing right? And you need to accept being an immigrant that now you're in a different environment where different metrics of what it means to be successful. That's the key, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
let maybe cover a little bit. So that execution part, I think it's pretty clear. I think it's the same in Russia. So you need to know how to measure your like product, blah, blah, blah. So, but how about like design and strategy? Can you maybe break into like specific point, what should be included in these components? What people should know to be successful product manager in the US?
correct. I think, to your point, growing up in, and this is just talking by myself, like I studied engineering. So growing up in a super engineering environment, for us, everything was numbers, and be sure like everything should be precisely calculated, right? We have the specific number of the market, the totally addressable market, and we have the serviceable addressable market. And we know that these people is spending X number of money. And we know that right now we could use, help them actually to get a new product, right? Now, specifically, what is product sense? And product sense or product design, right, is to first acknowledge that these alternatives to your product that people is using right now, right? So the product sense is not only involved like, oh, should we make this happen or not? Product sense involve like understanding what people is using and how your product will be more accurate and more efficient in what they're doing. So it's product sense is more about realizing what is the really benefit that people are receiving for your product, and be sure like what you are building, right, have actually the components that will actually make a superior experience, or let's say they give people the more accurate or more efficient what they are looking for. Now, that doesn't mean like they need to be beautiful or they need to be like super shiny, but that means like you need to realize like, yeah, this person right now is doing this in paper and it's super efficient to do in paper. Should we change it in paper, or should we do a combination of this? And we need to accept that not everybody will stop to doing in paper. People will continue doing paper, and there will be a period of transition where people is doing in paper, and after we'll help them to go in digital, right? Mm-hmm. Now, for that transition, who is the people who I need in this journey, right? I need probably persons who help me to onboard these people while gloving, right? I don't need to do 100% technology. Product execution is like paper, no paper. Okay, let's pass all these people directly to the technology. And product sense is this transition of like, hey, we know that you're using things in paper. What about if we first, as a first step, we give you a concierge to actually to talk with you and be a person helping you to fill your things in paper and return you the paper, and slowly start to transition you to technology.
So what I see from what you said is product design requires to focusing on pain points, solving people problem with some like MVP, some different steps that we can achieve towards our goal. So we just product sense, it's about understanding the major pain points. Is that correct?
Yes. It's about understanding the major pain points and alternatives, not just understanding the major pain points, because that's a big difference with just execution. When you execute this, like you know what kind of the things that you wanted to create, and you will go through that part, right? Doesn't mean that you know exactly how it looks like, but you know, like we need to create an app, and you go through that part. In product sense, you need to question: do we need an app, or do we need just a phone call, right? So
yeah, but phone call is a tool, is a solution. So correct. I think the problem that they need to just contact someone, like which way? I don't know, like using doves, pigeons. Yeah.
Yeah. And product strategy, for the other hand, right, need to evaluate even if we should ever happen or we should do it right now. So if we evaluate the product strategy, we'll ask him, hey, is actually, do we really need to do this? right? In product strategy, you will evaluate, well, if these people is doing that in paper, and this is actually taking us all this way to create a concierge and after to create an application and move it all this time forward, why would you just acquire all the people who is doing, like the companies who are doing this in paper? We don't need to create a digital solution. Let's just acquire all the white gloving companies who are doing this in paper, right? And let's just keep it over in our realm. And later, over the years, we will probably introduce an application like who actually substitute the paper. So product strategy is beyond that. We don't focus in create things. We focus in maybe acquire things, or maybe kill things, or maybe postpone things, or maybe improve things, right? So it's a bigger question versus product sense is focusing like, hey, why are we doing this and how maybe it looks like, and the execution is how we do this. In a strategy, we question even if we should even do this, right? You don't need to all the time create things. They are in my career, fortunately enough, I had the chance to even actually use create partnerships, right? So through a partnership, get a market, or even kill products. Do we need to kill a product because we need to actually give room, right? We don't necessarily need to take that. It's not benefiting us, but we take the room to the resources to spend it in another area that strategically we are looking at as a big picture.
So how did you learn these two parts? You said you have a gap with strategy and product sense, and you were pretty good in execution. So how did you fill this gap, and how much time did it take for you?
Excellent question. So and this is something that I learned being an entrepreneur, right? I have a mantra, which is plan, prepare, practice, perform, right? Plan where you want it to go. Yes.
I just tried to know: plan, prepare, practice, and what else? Perform. Okay.
Perform. Yeah. Plan, prepare, practice, perform is something that I have very embedded in my mindset since I was an entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur person, I had the board who actually direct. You think an entrepreneur, you have the control? That's not true. You have a board of directors who need to report, and you have the investors who actually give you guidance. So I had the chance to have like good mentors in that moment who were very rough on me as a 20-year-old guy. And they're all the time asking me, hey, Jesus, what do you want to do in this year? What do you want to do in the next 3 years? Jesus, why are you not planning? What actually are your gaps, right? So I think this kind of things forced me in a very young age to first plan where I wanted to go. Later, with that, identify the gaps that I have, right? And prepare over the gaps, right? Once I have that, practice. Be sure like I find it and I use it, smash it, practice and practice and practice and practice. And later perform. And perform is like, be sure like I can measure what was my impact in that. And I do this in all my life.
How did you measure that?
Yes. So great question. So this actually got to the concept of like, you can measure everything in your life if you actually put a value. Now, if you put a value and I don't mean like everyone need to be super structured at this, but you need to have a baseline, right? And that baseline, there will be up and down. If you don't measure that up and down, right? And you have meaning of that, and it could be whatever meaning for you, right? You don't know if you're doing good or bad. So things, for example, when I was learning English, right? My first very simple measure that was to just hold a conversation. So I tried to just that was my success metric, hold a conversation. And I tried, and until actually I can get it, I started holding conversations. And my next metric was like, be able to write like business emails. And
but how to measure product design skills and product strategy skills? How to measure that?
So you need to figure out what are the outputs. Everything have a process. What are the input and outputs?
What was your outputs?
Yes, I'll go to that part. So first, when I realized that I was using execution, I had to focus more on like where in my career in the next 3 years I wanted to be and what I actually want that people see from Jesus. And I started to put in like, what actually are the things I'm good at? Specifically for product design, right? I wanted to be very good and trade off. Be sure like when I go to meetings, right? The roadmaps that were showing off, right? They will actually make sense, right? When I say make sense, it's like not just focus in a fluent, like super detailed plan about what we're doing, but I want to be sure like I have trade off and the product roadmap that I have, the documentation that I have, they have different paths, very well documented. And that makes sense for the people who I was working, that my communication skills grow, basically having the buy-in. And I did things like implementing frameworks like ICE, right? Like impact, confidence, right? So these kind of things that was in my product sense, right? Once actually I feel comfortable and I receive, how I measure it? By feedback. Once I feel comfortable, I receive good feedback, not only for my peers in the company, but also for my community, the friends, and this is important of the community, my friends, other product managers. So I feel like I was improving in product sense. So, and then the next part, I noticed that the more and more I work with the executives, I was missing the big picture. Why big companies like PayPal or like Intuit take decisions to how we expand to different countries, or how we take decisions to acquire a company, or how we take decisions of how to evaluate our own company, right? So my next, and this is something that was very curious, like how all these big CEOs actually got trained and take decisions and go every quarter to define these super ambitious goals and telling this to thousands of people, right? So in the companies that I had the chance to work, I asked for that. I asked to my managers. I wanted to be good in strategy. I wanted to understand what a strategy means. Can I have a chance to work in the strategy meetings, right? Can I have a chance to work with the strategy partners, right? In big companies, so different to a startup, you have an area which actually is focused on strategy. So you have finances, you have marketing, you have a strategy, and you have the product leadership. And these areas work together to define what we call corporate strategy and product strategy. So I asked specifically to have chances to work there, and my unit of measure that was actually working in the strategy documents, what we call it the 6-pagers. So in these companies, fortunately, I had the opportunity to, I was here, people hear me, and I had a chance to challenge myself because working in a startup, I think I was doing strategy, but my unit of measure, that was my CEO, right? If my CEO approved it, so that means like, okay, I was going in a good path. And if the company was actually achieving their goals, I was going in a good path. But that's limited to the perception of the startup. So that startup probably the success goal that was acquire X number of part of the market and basically make it to the next round of investment. And after we get the round of investment, everybody happy. So the product manager do a good strategy because we achieved the goal, right?
Yeah.
But in a big company, it's more about like how actually we keep growing, right? How we maintain our position. So that get more factors involved, right? And I wanted to be part of that conversation. So I actively looking again, motivation. Yeah. Remember that part? Be highly motivated, be shameless, and just be persistent. So in my goals, after I feel I have self-validation, I really recognize it in product sense, right? I wanted to go to product strategy, and I see the 6-pager and be invited to these strategy meetings and be heard by my executives as my measure of success. And I work my path through. So I plan, I wanted to be in the strategy meetings. I prepare, I find out why I was not invited or why people don't hear me. I practice, I go to these people, I talk, I see examples, I ask them for give me task. Hey, can I help you with your research? Can I help you with your paper? Can I help you to this presentation? Hey, they have a chance to, you guys give me courses, or can I enroll to different courses, right? Which is one of the things that I told you some time ago, Reforge. right? In both of us, we got to Reforge, right?
Thank
Just
you
keep,
for introducing me to Reforge. Yeah, that's you had a lot of impact in my learning skills at Reforge.
I'm happy that
That's you. That's you.
it is my pleasure. That's a part of the community. We help each other. So that's the kind of thing, like just keep shamelessly improving yourself, right? You are your own enemy. And that's later on when I was finally, this happens to me at PayPal, when I was finally invited to direct strategies, like give me the empowerment, like when my director in that moment say, Jesus, you will lead the strategy to grow the products in Europe, in this specific country. So I knew it, that I was actually one, I was building already my reputation. And for their standard in communication, right? In communication, culture, and skills, they think I was ready. And I had my time to prove, not only for myself, but also when you're working in a big company, you have more people who will pinpoint it, right? Like, hey, so you're doing good, or you're doing bad, or you are really expanded that. Now, that's one of the advantages to working in a big company also is like, you have all this amazing group of resources, right? That you don't need to move by yourself. When you work in a startup, for example, when I was working in a startup, I need to do strategy things, and I need to do a lot of work by myself, like conducting the marketing campaigns, be sure like we contacted with the correct influencers, be sure like I measure it. And if I move one point of the chart, I was super excited. In a bigger corporation, we have a lot of people who is super good at this. So I can mark what will be the pace. Like, okay, we should go to this country with this strategy. People will actually, super smart people will evaluate it, and they will actually take actions on that. Like, yeah, I think your strategy makes sense. Let me take care of the campaigns. Let me take care of the influencers. And they will actually multiply your efforts. And in this case, see the results in a maximized way. I think that's beautiful in my personal experience. You see what I was doing in a startup and all the work and probably frustration that was taking me to move very little with a lot of work versus a big company where I put the vision and the path, and I have super skilled people and super well-connected people who actually will bring it to the next level, right? Like things I never imagined. Like when I tell my team, we should make a campaign here, and suddenly we have all these campaigns in TikTok and in Instagram with all these influencers. I personally was impressed. I was like, wow, how do you contact all the people? Like I just say that we should make a campaign there, but I have idea that you will make it happen in this way.
Cool. Yeah, we have actually 9 minutes. I have a lot of questions for you, but unfortunately I cannot ask all of them. I want to maybe wrap up today, and that would be great if you can provide some advice for people, for immigrants, PM from different countries who want to move to the US and continue their PM career. What's maybe like the main piece of advice we can give them?
I think my main piece of advice is first, evaluate yourself, right? So you as a person, you have ways to improve. It doesn't mean that you are super good or super bad. You always are improving. So my advice is try to evaluate yourself in 3 ways, right? To see how actually you can go up and up. Say plan, prepare, practice, perform. And the way that I personally do that, right, is first I evaluate what is my core capabilities, what I think Jesus is good at, right? And this is a question for everybody who's immigrant. Why? Because we are good at something. Maybe we didn't realize that, but we are very good at something. We are very good at probably talking with people, or very good at documenting things, or we are very good at math. We are very good at like analytics. Find what is your superpower, is your core capability, what you think you are good at, right? Second is evaluate your network. Like in that network, who you are and how people perceive you. So you think you are very good at analytics. Do the people who surround you think that you are good at analytics? And in which company they are working on, and which company they could bring you on? And the third one is your reputation. Like, what is the reputation that you think that you have by yourself versus the people outside of your network think that you are? And that's super important. That will guide you. Why it is important? Because you don't need to attack all the opportunities. When you come to a country like United States, you will find like so many opportunities that people actually get in this analysis paralysis, right? I want to be product manager, and like product manager from retail, product manager for fintech, product manager for social companies. Like, you have all this ocean of opportunities. Doesn't mean like all these opportunities will be right for you, because sometimes we just wanted to be in the opportunity, but we don't do the things that are right for us. However, if we first take a step back and we ask ourselves, what are my core skills? What is the people who I hang out, and how I want to be perceived? Then you have a spearhead point where you can filter. You know what? I think I should be working in the communication industry. And I wanted to be seen as one of the PMs who bring the next revolution of communication between people or teenagers, right? So you actually start to filter it. And if you evaluate your network, you probably notice that you are not hanging out with that kind of people. So you have a chance to improve. Probably you should find a way to hang out with that kind of people. Or if people perceive you a different way, you have a way to improve. Probably you should be doing things to be perceived as you want it to be perceived, right? And that will guide you to keep improving with focus, right? I did that by myself. I doesn't mean like work for everybody, but I can tell you, first evaluate yourself and later on attack the opportunity. And I do believe like everybody can achieve. Doesn't matter if you're a product manager, data science, UX. Just evaluate yourself and try to make a career path for you, because nobody cares for your career and for your life more than yourself. So don't let other people decide what you want it to be or how you want to be perceived.
Great. Yeah, such a good conversation, Jesus. So what I learned personally for myself is like, first, to be motivated, persistent, shameless, curious. Set your personal goal for like 3 years, 5 years, short term, long term. What else? And yeah, and execute, identify your strengths and your weakness, and execute, and not being afraid to ask help. Yeah, that's, if you don't understand something, just do that. Like, just ask people for help. And you helped me a lot. You got a lot of help from your friends, I believe. So it's just a community, and people help each other. People like helping. Yeah, if you just move to the US, you absolutely know nothing at the beginning, and you kind of like in the middle of nowhere with a lot of concerns and uncertainties. So yeah, I agree. So for my 5 years of experience in the US, I started from scratch with poor English in the small startup with a salary much lower than I have right now. Yeah, I agree.
It's a rocky start, and you grade them. You grow amazingly. So
yeah, also, yeah,
growing and developing.
Yeah, just make things done, like do that. Yeah, take your butt and go. Yeah. Stop complaining, be shameless. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely agree with you. Thank you, Jesus. I really miss you, and I wish you a good like health. I don't know, like what's good. Like Jesus was in a car accident, like motorcycle accident, several days ago. Yeah. So how do you feel right now?
I'm still recovering. I'm still in a pile of
Yeah,
recovering.
I saw your cyber hand.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
with our fingers.
Yeah, cyber fingers. Yeah. looks really cool. You're like a robot. Cool, Jesus. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your time taking today. If you don't mind, I'll put your comment like LinkedIn and I don't know, email, what you can share with me so people can maybe ask you a question because Jesus, do you do some coaching, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for making the channel. I think this is so much needed. I just have these kind of honest conversations and casual conversations with our goal, like in like what is the ideal path, but talking about what actually the roughness and the batches that they actually we need to confront as immigrants. I think it's amazing. So thank you for taking the initiative. And to your point, I'm always happy to help. I do believe like people who help me give me value, and I also want to proportion value for other immigrants. So I actually actively participate in the community. I do public speaking. I teach classes of product management. I also release my materials. And I do this because I just love continue learning and be sure like other people receive value in the same way that I receive value, right? Like one important, the power of community, and be sure like all of us can contribute is something like really changed my life.
Cool. Please invite me to these immigrant communities. I can share my story of immigration. Happy to help as well. All right. Thank you so much and have a great day to everyone. Thank you for joining this call today. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anna. Have a good night, everybody.